Namaskar and good evening to all respected resource person, esteemed participants and dear colleagues. I, Dr. Aditi Parikh, Senior Assistant Professor, Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, IIS deemed to be University, Vice President, Writers Reservoir, India, and Organizing Secretary of the workshop, welcome you all to the fifth and final day of the one-week National Workshop on Research Refined, Tool, Techniques and Thinking. Over the past few days, we have collectively engaged with the fundamentals of research, explored literature, review, and problem identification, examined design and data collection, and learned about analysis and interpretation. Today, we conclude with an equally significant theme, writing, presentation, and ethics in research. This day also holds special meaning as we celebrate Teachers' Day. Teachers are the guiding force behind every learner's journey. They not only impart knowledge, but also nurture discipline, curiosity, and values that shape generations. On behalf of the organizing team, I extend my warm wishes to all our teachers and mentors. In particular, I wish to acknowledge Professor Dr. Sanjeev Bhanawat sir, whose academic vision, dedication, and leadership in the field of media studies continue to inspire countless scholars and professionals across the country. Sir, we are deeply grateful for your contributions and guidance. We are also honored to have with us today, sir, a small token of appreciation from Team's Writers Reservoir. We are also honored to have with us today Professor Dr. Anil Mehta, a highly respected academician and professor of management in the Department of Legal Studies at Banasthali University. With more than 4 decades of distinguished service in teaching, research, and academic leadership, Dr. Mehta has made significant contributions to the fields of organizational behavior, human resource development, and management education. His guidance to doctoral and postdoctoral scholars, his extensive publication, and his authored books stand as a testimony to his commitment to academic excellence. He is widely recognized as an authority in organizational behavior, HRD, and management studies, and his expertise has benefited both academia and industry alike. On behalf of the organizing committee, I request that we extend a floral welcome to Professor Dr. Anil Mehta as a mark of our respect and appreciation. We welcome you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
On this concluding day, we are privileged to hear from him on a theme that is central to every researcher, ensuring ethical practices, clarity in writing, and effectiveness in presentation. His insights will undoubtedly help us refine our approach towards producing research that is rigorous, responsible, and impactful. We extend our sincere gratitude to you, sir, for joining us today, and we look forward to your enriching session. Thank you, sir. I request you, sir, to take over the session.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Organizers of this 5 days workshop, Devbhoomi Uttarakhand University, Writer Reservoirs, and Communication today. I really feel honored and privileged to be part of this workshop as a resource person. My esteemed friend, Professor Sanjeev Bhanawat, Dr. Aastha Saxena, Dr. Aditi Parikh, and other committee members of this workshop. First of all, happy Teachers' Day to all of you. I know that most of you are very young. Some of you have joined teaching profession recently. Of course, it's a heterogeneous group. While talking to Professor Bhanawat, I found that there are some very senior teachers also at the rank of professor. I'm really happy to see Vishwa Chaudhary and the other friends to whom I know through Professor Sanjeev Bhanawat. I'm quite sure that all these 5 days must be quite enriching and fruitful for all of you. Well, this is the last day. We are just approaching to the concluding, as you know, that today is the concluding and the validity session. So why not to talk about two important topics in brief? The first session will be on research report writing, and very closely associated with research and particularly the publications and the report writing, that is ethics in research as well as in publications as well. Of course, the nature of these sessions are such where we cannot have much hand-on exercises as you did previously in 2 or 3 sessions. But still, I would like to make these sessions as interactive as possible. And before I start, let me share my first presentation with you, that is research report writing. Please bear with me for a minute. Just a minute, please. Hope my presentation is clearly visible to you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So, research report. As you know that writing a research report and presenting it is the last part, but not the least part of the entire research process. In spite of the fact that you have really worked hard in your research project, thesis or dissertation, and in spite of the fact that you have done a wonderful research, came out with some very innovative ideas, where you have now perhaps produced the path-breaking results, and your research is going to be very, very beneficial to the stakeholders of these research. Now it's time to present your report or to present it in a documented way. And that's a very, very important aspect. If you cannot produce your results or the analysis that you have done, the recommendations that you are giving in a proper format, it will not reach to the stakeholders properly. And in that case, the entire exercise will be meaningless. And that's why research reporting is extremely important. Now, the first aspect is, that is, we start with the basic, that is, what is a report? As you find here, that report is a document. It's a document where you're presenting the entire information in a very organized format, in a structured format, to a particular target audience for a very specific purpose. Why I'm saying this? That unless you keep into consideration the audience, the people who are the beneficiary of that report or who will be reading that report, you will not be able to give it a proper shape. And moreover, you are submitting a report for a specific purpose. So the structure of the report will be depending upon the kind of people who are going to read that report, and the very purpose of the report is important. Of course, sometimes reports are presented orally, but simultaneously because you can present the report in a oral form in a small span of time only, maybe half an hour, maybe 45 minutes. But ultimately, when you will have to present a report comprehensively, a complete report, then you will have to give it a proper shape, and that should be properly documented. That is, it should be in a written document. So obviously, report is a study of all the facts and information that you have gathered. It is a formal, structured format which is always based on your observation and analysis. And certainly, your report should be presented in such a manner where the stakeholders could be able to utilize the inferences or the results that you have drawn and the recommendations that you are proposing. And certainly, report is an outcome of any event. Today, wide variety of reports are written and presented. But here, our focus will be mainly on the research report. So obviously, a research report is a well-crafted document that outlines the processes, the data, and findings of a systematic investigation. So obviously, the purpose of the research report is to present the result of a research. Whatever experiments you have done, whatever field study you have already conducted, whatever data you have gathered, on that basis, when you analyze it, on that basis, you come to certain findings and conclusions, and report basically contains the result of your entire research. And certainly, when you are preparing a report and drawing certain inferences, then certainly you are invariably enter the journal store of knowledge. In fact, you provide a persuasive argument to readers of what the researcher has really found. It also allows the reader selectively. Maybe reader is more interested in a selective part. When you prepare a report, on that basis, reader may be selective also. According to his interest, he or she can read it. And certainly, it adds values to the research results by effectively communicating to others. Certainly, research is a value addition in your own knowledge, your own scholarship. But unless you disseminate that information to the society, to the community, to the students, to the interested persons, perhaps research will not yield the desired, the main objective, that is benefit to the society at large. Now, there might be variation, but there are certain steps whenever we write a report. As I already mentioned, that first determine the objective of the report, that is identifying the problem and then giving certain solutions. And for that purpose, you start collecting the required material or fact for the report. So it's basically the research process, and accordingly, at the time of report writing also, these steps are very important. Then study and examine the facts gathered, that is planning the facts for the report. What is to be included in the report, that's also very important. Sometimes we gather enormous amount of information and gather and data that may not be useful as far as the report is concerned. Sometimes we want to keep it concise also. Sometimes we prepare the report for a particular stakeholder also. So accordingly, we scan the data and decide what is to be included in that particular report. And then preparing an outline for the report, that is preparing a draft. No report writer can write a final report at one stretch. Obviously, we'll have to write the report, that is maybe first draft or the rough draft, and accordingly, in the later part, we can refine, we can add, or we can edit the report, and then we distribute the final report or the draft report. Why final? Because on our part, we have prepared the report, then we can submit it to the advisory team or the stakeholders and ask their feedback and their more recommendation to fare the report. In case of research writing for PhD, of course, after preparing the draft, we get it approved from our supervisor. It is the same thing. So again, it depends for whom you are preparing that particular report. Now, let's talk about the structure of the report. And since most of the participants are concerned with their research report or the project report or the PhD report, then this is the standard format of the report that is most likely included. The title page, table of contents, abbreviations, acknowledgement, abstract, introduction, the main body, the main text part. That includes many things, conclusions, bibliography, and of course, appendix, etc. also. So it's a standard structure of the report, and there are always scope for variations. Certainly, it's a standard format, but variations are also possible. But you'll find that in most of the report, this structure is normally followed with some flexibility and variations. So starting with the title page of the report. As far as the title page is concerned, we all know that title contains the main title, the investigator or the presenter's name, and the institute to which he or she is affiliated. Then certainly the funding sources. Many times the report itself, the research itself is sponsored. Then we will have to give the funding agency. And in case of PhD, we all know that we'll have to give the name of our supervisor also, as well as we'll have to give the name of the department and certainly where we are submitting the report. And of course, the year is also quite important. So obviously, title is quite important because it is a title which determines whether the report will be read or not. Obviously, we are interested only to read that report to which if it arouses certain interest or it is relating to our aim or objective. So title must be quite descriptive and specific. So on one hand, title must be complete, that clearly reflects what this report contains, but simultaneously it must be very precise one, as we know that title should not be run over in many lines. It should be very specific, and as far as possible, abbreviations in the title should be avoided, and similarly, Roman numerals should also be avoided. And certainly, it is the caption or the title that is repeated across the top of each page, as you find in the books also. That is, a title is normally you will find on every page. So that's why title is extremely important. Then the second part will be the table of contents. So obviously, the table of contents include the major division of the report, the introduction, the chapters, the subsections, the appendix, bibliography, etc. And accordingly, contents must be numbered properly. And we can adopt any numeric style to depict that what basically the report contents. And as we know that in the content itself, we give the entire structure of the report along with the page number. And of course, here we give the list of tables, list of charts, diagrams, etc. Then, of course, researcher must be quite familiar with the abbreviation that we use. In any report, if we are giving certain abbreviation, we have done the research, we are quite familiar what these abbreviations are or what they stand for, but the reader may not be familiar. So what we can do is that we can give a list of abbreviation if the number is quite large that we are using. And secondly, in the report itself, first time we should give the full name, and then if it is abbreviated, then we can give the abbreviation. But whenever we are using any abbreviation, it should be in the full form whenever we are using that particular word. And certainly, abbreviation must be given in a separate page. And of course, these are some abbreviations which we are not using in the report itself, but we should be quite familiar with these abbreviations as a researcher. And then acknowledgement. So obviously, in a page, we should acknowledge those who have directly or indirectly helped us, or they made essential contribution. Of course, we can always acknowledge our supervisor, head of the institution, the functionaries who have provided us the important data, who have helped us in gathering the data, even the statistician, the sponsor of the funding agencies can also be properly acknowledged. So one should be quite generous in acknowledging also. And then we can give the abstract and the executive summary also. In fact, abstract or executive summary highlights what this report contains basically. If somebody doesn't want to read the entire report, so on the basis of that abstract and summary, one can get the gist out of the entire report. That is what this report contains. And certainly, this executive summary can create certain interest to the reader also to read the entire report. So it's a summary of the manuscript, maybe 200 to 300 words. And certainly, by reading that abstract, one can decide whether to read the entire report or not. And certainly, in abstract, we can always give what was the aim or objective of this particular research, what methodology we have used, and then what are the major highlights or conclusion of that particular researcher that he or she has reached to. So it should be part and parcel of the entire report. And then we can give the keywords also. So obviously we can include 5-7 keywords also. And certainly these keywords will be helpful if we give and if we get our report published, then they will be helpful to trace our report in the publications. And now coming to the introduction part. As far as the introduction is concerned, it's a standard guideline that the first paragraph of the introduction should be written with special care to grab the reader's attention. As we know that a report should be written in a very lucid style, very interesting style. It should not be dull. And certainly the first page or paragraph of the report must be quite catchy and attractive. So obviously, this introduction part should establish the existing state of knowledge of research topic and identify the spatial focus of the work. So we'll go from general to the specific study that we have carried. In fact, this introduction will typically includes a summary of the related research to provide a pertinent context also. So it provides the conceptual or theoretical background of the study. It should give a clear idea of reason, method, significance for the intended audience of the report. So obviously, as I mentioned, that the introduction part should start with a relatively broad background of the topic you are investigating, and researchers should explain why the problem is important in terms of either practical or theoretical interest. So that part will really arouse the interest of the reader. It can also include the conceptual or theoretical background, and it may include the certain definitions or the concepts to clarify that particular concepts or the terminology which we are going to investigate. So it is just like a funnel. Start with the general aspect of the topic, then coming to the specific, that is specific information about your topic, statement of purpose, and then rationale of the approach. So obviously, introduction part will move from general to quite specific. In the report itself, in the first part, that is introduction, statement of objective, statement of the purpose of problem statement must be given, number one. And secondly, we should highlight why this report is significant or what can be the expected contribution of this report to the stakeholders of this particular subject or the research. And after that, we can include literature review, which are usually done in the early phase of project. Even before starting the research, before gathering the data, we start doing the literature review to identify the research gap. So while writing the report, be sure to bring literature review up to date by including new researches. In fact, it's a trend now that whenever we write the literature review, you should try to make it in such a way where the literature review should not be 10 to 15 years old, and try to include the latest till the report is being submitted. Maybe it is from 2025. You can include the literature review maybe up to 2024. So the latest literature review must be given, and no pioneer study should be left while doing the literature review. And certainly each of the reference cited in research must be listed in the literature cited section. In fact, this is the part where you can give a lot of citation for the literature that you have reviewed. And now, after that, the research methodology, that is the material and the methods, that will include the objectives of your research, the study design, the scope of your research, the source of data, sampling techniques, field site description or the respondent profile. In case of science research, add description of the equipment and its use, data analysis techniques, the statistical tools that you have used, any software program that you have used. So obviously, this is all about the research methodology that you have used. And then the next part will be analysis and interpretation of your data. That's the heart, the key part of your report. Use all the tables and figures to help clarify the material when possible. Present the results of in a systematic investigation. Interpret the data presented. Describe the data analysis and the computer programs, as already mentioned, that you have used, and use graphs and charts if they are really necessary to clarify the information and the data. While giving the figures and table, always ensure the high resolution of the figure and table. It should be neat and legible, simple, clarify, properly formatted. Format is very important. In fact, no table should be broken in the next page. No, should be broken in the next page. One table which we are giving must be given in the same page, and no table should be given where title is missing. So detailed caption must be given for each table and figure. And while developing that table, give the serial number of the table. Maybe you can give the number directly, or you can give the number chapter wise. Then table should be as simple as possible. All tables must be self-explanatory, that is clearly depict, and it should be quite self-explanatory. Title should be clear, concise. Rows and columns should be properly leveled. Unit of measurement must be spelled out. That's very, very important. Maybe in rupees, maybe some in other measurement. It must be properly spelled out. Total must be correct. Total must be shown. Quotes, abbreviation, and symbols, if any, must be given in the footnotes. And if reproduced from the other sources, like secondary data, source must be given maybe at the end of the table or in the footnote. Similarly, figures, visuals, representation of results or illustrations of concepts, methods, graphs, images, diagrams should be properly given. Again, like table, keep them as simple as possible. Make it self-explanatory. It should have enough information to be clear without further clarification. Put a clear title along with a graph number. Access should be properly or clearly labeled, and unit on each access should be very clearly specified. And after data analysis, now coming to the discussion part, where you will be interpreting the data and draw the conclusion regarding your hypothesis. This is the part where you are going to test your hypothesis and giving the concerned or relevant charts or tables also, whether you accepted or rejected your hypothesis. Avoid repeating the result section. Evaluate your data and their implication in a broader context and present the justification for each outcome. And key findings should be emphasized first while discussion. So it is mainly concerned about the data interpretation. You have already analyzed the data. Now it's time that you will be giving the interpretation of that data, that what this all information analysis is depicting. And on that basis, now coming to the result part of that report, which is an objective summary of the data. And certainly here you can properly give that what exactly all this summary of the findings, your analysis, etc., hypothesis testing may lead to, what kind of implication of that study. That's very, very important part. And finally, coming to the conclusions and recommendations part, where you'll be presenting basically the major findings of your study, the conclusions, recommendations, and suggestions. Of course, there might be limitations. You can get the limitations, and thus then the recommendation for the future investigation also. So you'll find that the format of the research will be almost the same in the order as you have done your research. Then citation of the text is quite important. Number is allotted to a source in the order in which it is cited in the text. So in the same order, it should be cited. And certainly if the source is referred again, then the same number can be used. And certainly references should be numbered using Arabic numericals and in-box parentheses. That is, they can be again cited in order of appearance in the text as a superscript. Of course, you can use the APA style or MLA style, which are quite popular nowadays. But whatever style you are adopting for your references, ensure that uniformity must be maintained throughout your report. And then the appendix part. Obviously, the appendix part is basically containing that material, which is just a supporting material and which you have not been able to use in your main report, or that is too detailed, such as mathematical derivation or calculation, detailed technical drawings or tables or raw data. You can, of course, include the questionnaires, etc., the policy document or the other related document, and certainly uh, that can be the part of the appendix. And then the bibliography part. So obviously, the bibliography is the record of those sources and material that have been used for the study. But mind it, when we talk about the bibliography, you may not have used that material directly. Even then, if it is related to your research study, then you can always mention those sources. And certainly, if the number is large, then researcher may divide the bibliography into various sections, one for book, one for periodical, journals, reports, and even for the websites also. And then, if required, then you can give the glossary also. Glossary is a list of terms in a special subject, field, or area of uses with accompanying definitions. So obviously, when we have a glance on the glossary, then we will be able to know the terminology, their meaning, their definition. So it will be quite helpful to the reader to understand various technical terms that we have used in the report. And certainly, glossary can be, the terms can be arranged in an alphabetical order also. Now, let's talk something about some major tips for research report writing. Obviously, prepare the context before starting to write and start from the basics, obviously. So obviously, prepare a rough draft in which you are going to present your report. Always keep the target audience in mind while selecting a format that is clear, logical, and obvious to them. In fact, while preparing the report, just ensure that the format of the report is logical, the contents are relevant, and the report is clearly comprehensible or understandable. So make it logical, make it comprehensible, and make it relevant. It's very much essential for any researcher to have a clear research objective. But mind it, Whatever research objectives you have kept for your research, they must be adequately covered in your report. You should be able to do justice with each of the objective that you have uh, mentioned in your report. Similarly, your hypothesis must be properly tested. That's important. And on that basis, what is most important is that is your inferences or your results on the basis of the study that you have done. That should be the part and parcel of the entire report. And certainly gather all the information about your research topic. Of course, nowadays it's quite easy to check the grammar in English, that is spelling, but still you should be very cautious and careful while as far as the language part is concerned. I think if somebody is perhaps having some difficulty, one should not mind to take the help of some professional person who can just provide you guidance for good English. Discuss only the discoveries that are significant. Obviously, try and stick to the survey questions only. Don't give anything irrelevant from the report. The graph must have clear enough so that they are self-explanatory. Be clear with the message. Be creative with the titles. Create an effective conclusion and get a couple more pair of eyes. I think I think it's a good thing that if somebody who knows the subject could read the report well in advance before publishing it or before submitting it. So that person can also give you certain suggestions at the final stage even. These are some of the important features of an effective report writing. Obviously, they are quite self-explanatory, clear thoughts, complete and self-explanatory, comprehensive and compact, accurate in all aspects, suitable format for readers. Report must not be the writer-centric, but it should be reader-centric. It must support all the facts. We'll be talking about that facts and factual in the ethical part again. It should not be written in a personal style. Instead of using the you word, it always write the report in third person. It must have a proper date and signature. It has a reference to relevant details. Provide all the references and details. And of course, the report should not be biased. Always adopt impartial approach. It must contain all the essential technical details. It must be presented in a very lucid style. It should not be dull and boring. I think report must be kept for record purpose, reference purpose. So it must be a reliable document and it must be arranged in a logical manner. So obviously, report should not be dull or boring. It should be error-free. The language should be correct and it should be crisp and concise. Avoid too much lengthy report. Report writer must master the following, some of the abbreviation. It's not a complete list, not an exhaustive list, but some of the important abbreviation every report writer must be familiar with, like BK or BKS, like books, CHAPS for chapter, PNPP for page and pages, column or columns for example, ETL for in case of two or more authors, we can use this. IBID when we are repeating the same source, just next source, then we can use the word IBID, or vol and volumes, that is volume or vol. And certain general guidelines for writing, not for typing the report. The left margin should be 1 inch. The right margin should be 1 inch. the left margin should be 1.5 inch, the top margin should be 1.25 inch, and the bottom margin should be again 1.5 inches. It's a standard suggestion. Why we kept the left margin 1.5? Because maybe some part will be perhaps covered in the binding also. So keep sufficient margin at the left end. All textual material should be double spaced. Textual material should be double spaced. In case of that paragraph, it may be triple space, or if it is in the form of quotation, then single space. Dividing the word at the end of the line should be avoided as far as possible. Papers are numbered at the top. Normally, papers are numbered at the top. Numeric page numbering begins with the first page of the chapter. But of course, on the first page, we don't write number because it is understood that it starts with the first page only. The font should be 10 point or 12 points. Generally, the same form should be used throughout the manuscript, except that for tables and graphs may be used a different fonts, and chapter title and section headings must use a different fonts. Finally, we can say that report is a very, very important document which is always used in record and for the future reference. Report must contain adequate and correct information as well as statistical data to the management and helps in decision making. A report provides information of unknown facts, new ideas, new vision, new solution to problem, new research about a particular matter. Report should not be just duplication or replication what has already been done in the past. Reports must provide a valuable information of all sectors in the business. Hence, report is useful for solving the problem of various departments, various institutions, and certainly it's a very, very important tool for internal as well as external communication. So that's all about in very brief. And before we touch the next topic, now for this particular subject, now if you have any questions, any comment, anything which you have to further add, you are most welcome. Before I start the next, yeah, you can open your mic and just have your observations or comments and questions.
Sir, typically it's all in A4 size, I believe, sir. Page size.
Pardon, sir? Pardon?
The page size is typically in A4 size, I think.
Normal, yes. Certainly. It should be A4 size only. Yeah. Some questions for this particular session? Any questions? So coming to the second part now.
Sir, Madhu Manjari
Yeah,
ma'am
please.
has raised her hand. She wants to ask something.
Pardon, sir?
Madhu Manjari ma'am, she has raised her hand. She
Yeah,
wants to
please.
ask something.
Yeah, please ask the question. Yeah.
Madhu Manjari ma'am, do you have a question?
Any question?
Surendra sir, you also have raised your hand. Do you have any question?
हाँ सर नमस्कार
नमस्कार।
मैं
जी।
सुरेंद्र कुमार मेरठ से सर जुड़ा हूँ।
जी हाँ नमस्कार सुरेंद्र जी।
मेरा सवाल सर ये है कि जब हम रिव्यू ऑफ लिटरेचर करते हैं और कोई आर्टिकल हम इंटरनेट के माध्यम से या फिर किसी भी ऐसे सॉफ्ट माध्यम से पढ़ते हैं और उससे हम बिब्लियोग्राफी में जब हम उसका मतलब उसको लिखेंगे तो एपीए फॉर्मेट में लिखेंगे या फिर वो जो लिंक हमको मिला है तो उसको हम यूज करेंगे ऐसे में?
देखिए, जब आप लिटरेचर रिव्यू में कोई आप आर्टिकल लेते हैं, मेरा पहला सुझाव तो यह है कि क्योंकि आज किसी भी विषय में लिटरेचर की कोई कमी नहीं है, तो आप ऐसा लिटरेचर आप उसको आप सेलेक्ट कीजिए, उसका रिव्यू कीजिए जो कि काफी इम्पोर्टेंट है, काफी पॉपुलर है और एक इम्पोर्टेंट स्टडी उस फील्ड में और आपसे रिलेटेड है। नंबर 1, एज फार एज पॉसिबल आप अगर आपको लगता है कि वो इंटरनेट पर कोई बहुत अच्छा क्लोज एक्सेस में आपके कोई अगर आर्टिकल है, तो क्योंकि आप उसको एज इट इज रिप्रोड्यूस करेंगे नहीं, आप उसको मेंशन करेंगे और अपनी उसी स्टाइल में करेंगे जिससे आप अगर एपी स्टाइल में कर रहे हैं तो उसी स्टाइल में उसको आप लिखिएगा। रेफरेंसेस में आप उस वेबसाइट का नाम या जो सोर्स है उसका आप मेंशन कर दीजिएगा, तो ये क्वेश्चन वहां पर आएगा नहीं कि आपको उसका मेंशन करना है। और जहां सवाल लिंक्स का है, मेरे ख्याल से आपको अगर आप पब्लिकेशन फॉर्म में उसको आप दे रहे हैं तो कोई आवश्यकता, अगर वो सॉफ्ट कॉपी में तब तो आप लिंक दे सकते हैं, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है, और हार्ड कॉपी में तो आपको देने की जरूरत पड़ेगी नहीं। तो मेरे ख्याल से आप थ्रू आउट आप उसको एपीआई स्टाइल में यूज कर सकते हैं।
जी सर, थैंक यू सर।
कोई और सवाल? आई थिंक स्टिल यू कैन आस्क द क्वेश्चन, क्योंकि सेकेंड पार्ट के बाद हमारे पास फिर भी काफी समय रहेगा, तो उसमें भी हम इस टॉपिक को दोबारा से कवर कर सकते हैं। सो अगेन लेट मी शेयर माय प्रेजेंटेशन विथ यू, जस्ट अ मिनट। विजिबल है सब ये?
जी सर
Yes,
जी।
sir. Yes, sir.
So the second part is on research and publication ethics. Over the last few years, this particular topic is quite very fast gaining the momentum and considered very important because of some of the instances where unethical practices were used, or there are some plagiarism problem also. So, of course, the topic is quite extensive, but let me cover some of the important aspects of research and publication ethics here. As you know that ethics is more concerned with the certain values, certain norms, certain do's and don'ts. That is what is right or what is wrong, what is correct or what is incorrect. And perhaps they are the accepted code of practices which are prevailing in the society. So obviously, they are the model principles that cover our behavior or conducting of an activity. Certainly, these code of conduct provide us the responsive kind of behavior that we should demonstrate in the society. And certainly, it educates and monitors the researcher conducting research to ensure a high ethical standard. So obviously, there is hardly any area of social activity where ethical models and ethical practices are not required, and researches are no exception to it. And certainly, adhering to research is our moral or socially ethical or socially responsible practices which is expected by the society from us. Certainly, ethics in research is extremely important, because if ethical practices are not adopted in research, perhaps we will not be able to have a good fund of knowledge, authentic knowledge. And certainly, how can you do the collaboration on teamwork unless the researchers are ethical in their deeds and practices? It helps in protecting the data anonymity of the subject and confidentiality, and the ability to build trust-based relationship with their respondents and retain it. So when ethical practices are there, it indicates that the researchers are reliable and there will be complete faith and trust with the research organization, the researcher, and the other stakeholders. And certainly, ethics is important to protect the research participants' rights and welfare, and to reduce the risk of physical and psychological discomfort, damage, or to threats appearing because of the research procedures. So obviously, research ethics is important to protect the right of the researchers to carry out a lawful research and reputation of the institution. In fact, the kind of research that is being done in any institution, it is coextensive with the reputation of the institution as well. Every researcher is a brand ambassador for the research organization. And if the unethical practices are there, it will very adversely affect not only the personal integrity and reputation of the researcher, but the institution's reputation as well. Similarly, if you want to publish your research in a reputed or prestigious journal, then you will have to adhere to the ethical practices. And certainly, good ethics means that researcher is accountable for fully responsible for the research, and certainly the society will have more trust on the research work that has been done. In fact, there are certain principles. Researchers should be done in such a manner where the society can get maximum benefit and with the minimum cost that the society has to bear in any form. So, in fact, the purpose of the research should be to give the maximum benefit to the society with minimum of cost. Researches should be conducted in such a way where human dignity is maintained properly. And that's why what is important that research should not harm any segment of the society, and particularly those who are involved in the research. And certainly, research should not be biased. Researches must be conducted in an objective way, and certainly confidentiality and privacy must be maintained. When we talk about the research ethics particularly, then there are certain guidelines researcher must take into consideration: honesty in research, no biasness, that is complete objectivity, carefulness, particularly in collecting the data as well as in his or her observation, integrity, high order of integrity in research also, communicating the results properly, respecting all the laws relating to the intellectual property rights. Confidentiality must be maintained. There should be complete openness. That is, transparency must be maintained. It is the duty of the researcher to guide the younger researcher in the same field by virtue of his or her experience in the research. I think competence is that area that cannot be compromised by any researcher. Researcher must be well versed with the latest advances which are taking place in the field of research, or at least in the research tools that he or she has used. Those researches, particularly in the field of science or medicine, when we are using animals for the research purpose, of course, there should be utmost care should be taken for that it may not cause any harm to the animal. And of course, there are laws, there are legal boundaries, there are legislations, and of course, researcher must follow and adhere to these all regulations and laws. Then coming to the publication ethics. we have discussed about the report writing, and certainly after report writing, it will be published also. And certainly, when we talk about the publications, maybe your PhD thesis, maybe books, maybe research articles. So obviously, ethical standards must be followed there also. So obviously, researcher is or will always remain the owner of the published work, and certainly ethical norms must be followed there also. In fact, who are the members who are involved in the publication part? Obviously, ethical norms are applicable to authors, journal editors, peer reviewers, and the publishers. When we talk about the publication ethics, then these are the three important issues where the question of ethics many times come. Who is the author, number one, who are the contributors? What are the issues relating to the conflict of interest? And then the publication misconduct. So let's talk about them one by one. When we talk about the misconduct, then it is basically the violation of the standard codes of scholarly conduct and ethical behavior in the publication of research. And certainly the research misconduct or scientific misconduct is defined as fabrication, falsification, or plagiarism in proposing, performing, or reviewing the research, or in reporting research results. So we'll be discussing some of the important issues in this regard later on. One question that is often asked, that why there is a misconduct in research. Obviously, one major reason for the research misconduct is because of our career pressure. We want to publish our research as early as possible, and sometimes quality of research is compromised. That's a big problem because of this academic and career pressure. We don't intend to involve in the misconduct in research, but because of that pressure to get ourselves promoted, or sometimes if we are ad hoc and we want the permanent position, then in the process of that early research, sometimes the ethics is compromised. Similarly, publication pressures are there. In many institutions, it has been made mandatory that the faculty members must publish at least 1 or 2 or 3 research papers or articles that is again in a reputed journal or an index journal. And because of the publication pressure, there might be some unethical practices. Sometimes in order to gain the increment or incentives, there might be some research malpractices also. Then sometimes innocently, because of the inability to determine what is right and what is wrong, the fair practices in research is sometimes ignored. But the misconduct will have a lot of adverse impact, because many times if the misconduct is of quite serious nature, then it could mean the end of the career to a researcher. There are instances where the researchers found guilty of some serious misconduct, and because of that, their services have been even terminated, and it was a pathetic situation for them. So dismissal of the faculty, rejection of research grants, blacklisted, damage of reputation may have perhaps whatever reputation the researcher has earned, perhaps it is completely now erased. Why research misconduct matters? Because it is difficult to be recognized. It is like a domestic violence. We did not recognize it, but yet we see a lot. It undermines public trust in the research, and it corrupts the scientific records and lead to false conclusion. And that's why we must ensure that there is no misconduct in the research. Now, what research misconduct normally doesn't include? Everything is not research misconduct. These are some of the areas where they don't fall in the category of misconduct, like ordinary error, good faith, difference in interpretation or judgment of data. It might be your interpretation in good faith. There might be a scholarly or political disagreement, good faith, personal or professional opinion, private moral or ethical behavior or views. So they don't fall under the category misconduct. Now, in order to ensure good research ethics, these are some of the important guidelines. Right from the very beginning, develop a clear research plan. Submit protocol to ethical review. In fact, there are practices of many universities and institutions where even from the very beginning, right from submitting the research proposal, it is properly assessed and reviewed by independent evaluators, or sometimes even at that level, flag check is done. So whatever the protocols for the ethical research is required, they must be followed strictly. If you are writing a research paper, then agree on authorship during the conduct of research. What will be the order? Who will do what? How they are going to coordinate? It must be very much clarified. Follow the approved protocol. Gain consent from the respondents if you are getting their feedback. Involve the community and regularly check your data. So that will be quite helpful to maintain the research ethics. Now, one of the very serious problem is in the unethical practice, that is fabrication of data. Fabrication of data means just cooking or making that data. The idea is basically that you are just making your data without doing the actual research. Sometimes data is inflated or wrong data is presented just to ensure that results may come in your favor. So that is highly unethical practice. So obviously don't invent the data or information. Don't create the data on your own. Then falsification. Falsification means that is practicing of manipulating research material, equipment or process, or changing or omitting data or research in such a way that research is not accurately represented in the research record. That is, you are giving the false information and data just to improve the results or just to make the results in your favor. So falsification and fabrication of data are highly unethical practices, and a researcher must do away with them. Then plagiarism. It means an act of academic dishonesty and a breach of ethics. It involves using someone else's idea or work as one's own. Of course, again, the level and the degree of plagiarism may vary. It may include the data plagiarism as well as the self-plagiarism also, that is copying one's own work that has already been published. Plagiarism is not merely confined to just cut and paste, but it is just translation, synonymizing, or sometimes some other practices are also falling into the plagiarism kind of thing. So obviously, based on the wrongful appropriation and stealing and publication of another author's language, thoughts, ideas, or expressions, and the expression of them as one's own original work, that is referred as plagiarism. So obviously, 4 elements are mainly presenting in this definition. Number 1, the unattributed use of words, text ideas, or illustrations created by someone else other than the author listed. The failure to credit the original author in a manner appropriate to the communication. The statement that the plagiarist is the original author and the reality is that he or she is not. The failure to obtain the original author's consent. Without the consent, you are using the material. So any of these elements individually or collectively constitute the plagiarism. Here you just see the most common type of plagiarism. The ghostwriter. The ghostwriter is one who has contributed significantly in that research or research paper, but his name is not there. He has not been properly recognized. Then the photocopy writer, where the writer is completely copying the work done by the others. Then potluck paper writer, where the writer, the author is just compiling, just to go through the work done by 15 writers or authors, and then on that basis, just compiling it. That is also not an ethical practice and come under plagiarism. And then the self-stealer writer, where without citing or quoting the previous work, the author just claims that it is for the first time that he is doing or she is doing this kind of work. So the work might be mine, but if I'm not referring it and just again quoting it, it is also a sort of plagiarism. So ghostwriting, photocopy writer, this potluck writer, they all are the different forms of plagiarism. So obviously, as already mentioned, that it may the extent may vary. It may be complete copying, or it may be just a patchwork plagiarism where I'm lifting certain lines or paragraph from the other's work. Even the paraphrasing plagiarism, where the work has been done by other, but now I am just reproducing it in my own words and then claiming that it is my work. So obviously, sometimes the paraphrasing may not come under the plagiarism check tools, but even then it is a sort of plagiarism because that conclusion, that inferences have not been drawn by me, but it is someone else's work, but now I am reproducing in my own language. And sometimes unintentional plagiarism, where I was not intending to copy something, but unintentionally. But whether you are doing intentional or unintentional, it will fall under the plagiarism. Of course, nowadays there are a number of softwares available for plagiarism check. Out of them, the Turnitin is quite popular. This Orkut and Turnitin is very, very popular. And of course, before submitting any research paper, one should always satisfy himself or herself for that plagiarism check, so that there may not be any controversy or problem in the later stage. Now, what is that similarity check? When we test the plagiarism, then certainly all quoted work either falling under public domain or reproduced with all necessary permission and or attribution. So all references, bibliography, table of content, preface and acknowledgement, all small similarities of minor nature, all generic form, laws, standard symbol, and standard equation. So obviously they are always excluded in similarity check. So maybe there might be similarity, but they will not fall under the category of plagiarism. Now, what is the tolerance limit of plagiarism? While evaluating that doctoral thesis in the universities in India, different prevailing tolerance limit for plagiarism have been found out for acceptance of plagiarism similarities percentage in the thesis. So you'll find that different institutions and universities are having different policies as far as the plagiarism is concerned. It may vary from 10 to 15% to up to 30%. Of course, as per the guidelines of the UGC, it should be below 10%. So before submission of the thesis, one should always check the plagiarism policy of the concerned institution. Or if it is an article or research paper, then just ensure that whatever the limits prescribed, it should always fall within that limit. But certainly, when we talk about the plagiarism, in fact, the core work carried out by the student or faculty or the researcher shall be based on original idea and shall be covered by zero tolerance policy on plagiarism. Because you have done the work, it is your idea, your research. So obviously, at that stage, there should not be any plagiarism. There might be possibility of some sort of similarity when you are writing the introductory part or the literature review part, but obviously it cannot be tolerated where your research or your inferences are concerned. So the core work where there should be zero plagiarism is your abstract, summary, hypothesis, observation, results, conclusions, and recommendations. Now, as far as non-core areas, the areas that we have discussed, that is, again, I'll repeat, the abstract, the summary, the hypothesis, and that observation, results, conclusions, and recommendations. They are the core area, but as far as the non-core areas are concerned, obviously, there might be possibility that is similarity to 10% excluded, then level 1, similarity about 10 to 40%, level 2, similarity between 40 to 60%, and then the similarities above 60%. Then what can be the policy in this regard? You just see that every single instance of using phrases and ideas that are not yet your own must be acknowledged by giving the name of the person who first expressed every concept of thought that which is mentioned in your text. So obviously, in order to avoid the plagiarism, never forget to quote, to cite, to refer the person or the researcher whose ideas you are reproducing. When someone's work is directly quoted, always place these words in your quotation marks. That's always better to give it in the quotation. Large quotation, which you should try to avoid or use sparingly should be blocked to make them stand out clearly. This means indenting and single spacing the entire quotation, also using the similar type of case if you wish. If trying to express author's words or ideas by paraphrasing, then use your own words. It is not enough simply to change the words or to substitute one or two words only. So obviously, if you are just giving some other author's idea even, then you can cite his name and then you can paraphrase also. But at least the name must be given in that case. Secondly, more lengthy material can be summarized in one's own style and language. Do not repeat the author's own words without placing them in the quotation. So when you are using the words of someone else, so always give it in quotation. It is important to keep a list of full details of all the references that might be used as you go along, and not think that you will be able to do the citation in the last minute, because many times we forget. So as soon as you are reading or referring someone, then never forget to just note down separately the full detail of that work so that you can cite at the later stage. Whenever using your own words to express the idea of someone else, you must still put the source, even though you then do not have to use quotation marks. Already mentioned that whenever you are using any idea, then never forget to just cite that person or the institution. Information from a wide range of electronic sources increasingly used in academic writing, and references to such source should be included in the list of source cited in written text. So I think the best safe course will be your citation and references. Then there are certain guidelines by UGC, and some institutions have also framed their own rules. In case of plagiarism, what are the penalties? So obviously, penalties shall be imposed on students pursuing studies in the level of UG, Masters, MPhil and PhD, and faculty and staff of the higher education institution only after academic misconduct on the part of the offender has been established without doubt, when all avenues of appeal have been exhausted and individual in question has been provided enough opportunity to defend himself or herself in a fair or in a transparent manner. So obviously, after hearing the person who is found indulged in such kind of activity, that is plagiarism, there might be provision of penalties also. I already discussed about the level 1, 2, and 3, 10 to 40%, 40 to 60%, and 60% and above. In case of 10 to 40%, particularly for the students, in fact, their proposal, their project will not be accepted in any case. They will not be given any marks. Similarity between 40 to 60%, obviously, again, they are supposed to resubmit it maybe after 1 year. But in case of 60%, such students shall not be given any mark or credit for the plagiarism script, and his registration can be cancelled in that case. In case of, again, the faculty, staff, and researcher, 10 to 40%, they may not be allowed to publish any work for the minimum period of 1 year. 40 to 60%, they will not be allowed to publish any research work for next 2 years. And perhaps their one annual increment may be stopped in that case and not allowed to guide UG, PG, and master's students or PhD students for next 2 years. And in case of level 3, obviously, in that case, the person may be not allowed to publish any work for the next 3 years. and the person is not allowed to supervise the candidate for next 3 years. Now, as far as the authors are concerned, again, there might be ethical issues as far as who is an author. As far as the author is concerned, it is defined that author is one who has contributed substantially to conception and design, acquisition of idea, or analysis and interpretation of data, who has drafted the article or revised it critically for important intellectual content, and who has agreed to be accountable for all aspects of the work to ensure that question related to the accuracy or integrity of any part of the work are appropriately investigated or resolved. So if somebody is falling in all these criteria, then the person should be considered as an author. Otherwise, he or she is not an author at all. So obviously, this is the category which should not be considered or qualified to become an author. Somebody has acquired the fund, acquisition of fund. On that basis, the person cannot be called as author. His name cannot be given or designated as an author. Just supervision of work doesn't mean that somebody has become the author. Of course, such person can always be acknowledged, but they can't be called as author. Minor laboratory support and administrative support. So those who are fall under this category, they should not consider that they are authors, and their name should not be given. There are certain unethical authorship practices also, like gift authorship or honorary authorship. The person has not contributed in any way in that research or preparing of that research paper, but we are just giving the name of that person and making him author as a gift. So that is unethical. Guest authorship. Again, a person who has not contributed, but just to get the advantage of the position or designation of that person, we are just giving his name as an author. Since the person is having a head of the institution or dean or vice chancellor or a professor, and you are giving the name just to increase the possibility of publication, then that person is again guest authorship. That is not. Ghost authorship, we have discussed that a person has contributed significantly, but his name is not being given in the authors list, or he is not properly recognized as an author. And anonymous authorship, just contrary to it. Obviously, the person has written the research paper, but his name is not being given in any way, that the person is contributed significantly, but his name is not given. So obviously, these are again the unethical practices, and one should be very clear that is those who fall under the category, the criteria that we discussed in the previous slide should always be considered as an author, not the rest of this kind of guest authorship or ghost authorship or this gift authorship or anonymous authorship. Then salami publication. What happens sometimes that we carry research, then split it in small parts, and for each part, we just send it for the publication. It is referred as slicing or salami publication. So again, it is unethical. So obviously, if there is one research project, then we should not break it and make the different research papers from one research project. Again, it is unethical. Then there are certain ethical convention of a publication. authors of the publication should not submit one research paper simultaneously to more than one publishers or more than one editors. That is referred as multiple submission, because if by chance the same research paper is published by two or more publishers simultaneously, then again the authors will be in difficult situation. So avoid that multiple submission, multiple publication, that is publishing that article to two or more publication, that is also unethical. Then suggesting the potential reviewers. So obviously authors are not supposed to suggest the potential reviewers. Rather, the reviewer should be independent and should be selected by the editors of the journal only. And then error correction in a published paper. So obviously one should always be ready if there are certain error, and if it is written to the author, then all the errors must be properly corrected. One should refrain from publishing the research paper in predatory journals also. What are the predatory journals? Predatory journals are those journals which are published merely to make money, not for any academic purpose or not for promoting the research. These journals are not having any concern for the quality content. They just receive the research papers and publish it, not bothering about reviewing the research papers, not editing them. They are unable to follow the accepted standards, and they certainly advertise or false claiming about their indexing. So one should be very cautious, because even if the research papers are published in such kind of journals, they will not get any credit for such publication. So obviously one should be cautious while sending the research paper. And certainly, how to know about these fake journals? They are unstructured web page and lot of errors in the very often found in such predatory journals. Advertisement to attract the authors. They publicize, they promote their publications, and directly approach to the authors for contributing the research papers. They promise for the prompt publication. They are not having any clear policy as about the open access, proper security, or digital platform. Not having any, many times the numbers also. Asking manuscript handling charges, sometimes very low and sometimes very high also, to attract, particularly in case of the low APC, that is that application processing charges. If they are very low, then particularly it creates doubtful, and sometimes in order to make the money also, these predatory journals charge very high amount. So one should be very, very cautious and careful about that. So this is all about, in brief, about the ethical aspects and research, and one should be quite careful and cautious. One should be quite objective, transparent, honest, and at utmost level, the integrity must be maintained right from conducting the research to the publication of research. So I'm quite sure that I've been able to do justice with, of course, the topics are quite extensive, but I try to just cover these two topics quite quickly in this session. Now, session is open for discussions, questions, comments, etc. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Professor, thank you for that insightful lecture, and we have a lot of insights into this. My name is Sudhir Reddy. I have a question. I just would like to refer to one incident that happened in 1960s in the US. The Sugar Research Foundation, it funded Harvard University. And, the objective of the research was to downplay the bad effects of sugar. And what exactly happened was that they started downplaying and the bad effects of, they started saying that eating fat is very detrimental to the health, and they never even put the sugar on the target. So this was a deliberate attempt by the sugar industry in order to manipulate the public opinion using an institution like Harvard University. So my question is, sir, is there any mechanism in place, or are there any guardrails so that any educational institution or higher learning institute can have some kind of screening process whenever a private enterprise approaches them? Because of course all these private enterprises are for-profit organizations. So I just would like to know how do we handle this
Thank
issue?
you. It's a very good question that you have asked. There is one important aspect as far as the ethics in research is concerned, that is conflicting interest. It is the responsibility of a researcher, if he or she is attached with some organization, maybe he's getting some funds from that organization, maybe the entire research project is sponsored by the institution, maybe if the research is conducted just to promote or just to have that kind of benefit to that organization, this must be disclosed by the researcher. So obviously, if the report itself very clearly mentions that this project is sponsored by so and so organization, or there is an interest, that is the researcher has been hired by particular private or commercial organization, it clearly reflects that the researcher is working for that organization. Even in such case, as far as ethics says, that researcher must be objective. He or she should not be biased one. You know that ethics is a voluntary kind of thing. In fact, my inner conscience, my integrity, my morality is very, very important while conducting the research. Suppose the project has been sponsored to me to conduct a research, whether such kind of product will increase the sugar level or not. If the result clearly reveals that this kind of product is harmful for the body, or if it is perhaps not good for consumption, it is my responsibility as a researcher to be very, very objective. Just to earn money, I should not, in fact, compromise with my integrity. You know that it's a question of integrity. In fact, integrity, character, morality, and ethics, they are above law. So I think it's my personal responsibility. And moreover, even the organization has sponsored me, and I was not biased. I have conducted a complete objective research. But after that, if the results are in favor of that particular organization, so I think there is no harm in presenting that report, number one. And secondly, here perhaps there is no biasness because you have sufficient evidence and data. What I'm saying is that if your research is based on certain evidence, certain data, you are quite objective, you are not biased, then certainly you can maintain your integrity. But if you are biased, if you are fabricating the data, if you are falsifying the information, then it is against ethics. And as a researcher, you should not involve in such type of activity. As far as the institutions are concerned, perhaps most of the reputed institutions are having their own internal ethical committee that scrutinize the projects at their level But in spite of all the guidelines that are perhaps provided for the researchers, there might always be a possibility of some sort of biasness. So it is my individual personal responsibility not to be unethical in my practice and research, because in the long term, it may adversely affect my own reputation. And once it is identified clearly that I was biased in research, my research results were wrong, so ultimately it will be harmful for me in the long term. That is my
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Some more questions, please.
Anybody, any questions?
Any questions?
मुझे लगता है अनिल जी आपका व्याख्यान इतना स्पष्ट और प्रभावी था कि शायद किसी प्रकार की शंकाएं या जिज्ञासाओं की कोई आवश्यकता नहीं है।
संजीव जी शुक्रिया इसके लिए।
हाँ, लग यही रहा है मुझे। देखिए फूल पत्तों की बरसात हो रही है आप पर। महसूस करने की बात है बस।
थैंक यू
सर, कंक्लूड करें?
हाँ, मुझे लगता है थोड़ा सा अपन कुछ देर के लिए जो पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं इनका फीडबैक भी ले लें, और आस्था ने यदि कोई रिपोर्ट तैयार की हो पिछले 5 दिन का जो फीडबैक मिला है अपने को उस बेस पे, तो आस्था
जी
से
सर, हमारी स्क्रिप्ट में है सर।
जी जी।
Respected Professor Dr. Anil Mehta sir, distinguished participants and dear colleagues, as we gather for the valedictory session of the 1-week National Workshop on Research Refined Tools, Techniques and Thinking, it is my privilege to first invite our patron, Professor Dr. Sanjeev Bhanawat sir, former head, Center for Mass Communication, University of Rajasthan, Jaipur, and editor Communication Today, to kindly share a few words of guidance and blessings with us.
अदिति, इसके पहले अपना ई सर्टिफिकेट और ई मेमेंटो।
यस सर, वो ठीक है सर,
ताकि एक बार वो चीज पूरी हो जाए, उसके बाद फिर आगे का अपन।
On behalf of the organizing committee, we take this opportunity to extend our heartfelt appreciation to today's distinguished speaker, Professor Dr. Anil Mehta, for his insightful and thought-provoking session. As a token of gratitude, we shall now present him with a memento and certificate of appreciation in recognition to his valuable contribution to this workshop. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for giving me this recognition and certificate. Thank you.
नहीं, आस्था से रिपोर्ट करा लीजिए, फिर लास्ट में मैं थोड़ा बहुत ओवरऑल उसका समाप्त कर दूंगा, है ना?
जी सर। I request Dr. Aastha Saxena, Organizing Secretary of the workshop, Associate Professor and Head Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Poornima University, Jaipur, and President Writers Reservoir, to kindly present the formal report of this 1-week workshop.
Thank you, Aditi ma'am. The 1-week online workshop on research refined tools, techniques, and thinking was the workshop was jointly organized by Communication Today Media Journal and Writers Reservoir India in association with Dev Bhumi Uttarakhand University, Dehradun. It aimed to equip participants with a comprehensive understanding of research process, covering methodology, literature review, research design, data collection, analysis, interpretation, and ethics in research. The workshop began with an insightful inaugural session. The keynote address was delivered by Professor Subhash Dhulia sir, former Vice Chancellor, Uttarakhand Open University, who emphasized the importance of research in today's era and appreciated this initiative. The guest of honor, Professor Dr. Ritika Mehra, Pro Vice Chancellor, Dev Bhumi Uttarakhand University, Dehradun, also shared her reflections on the relevance of research in academia. The presentation was delivered by Sanjeev Bhanawat sir, retired professor, Center for Mass Communication, University of Rajasthan, and founder and editor of Communication Today Journal, who highlighted the vision and objective behind the workshop. 2 books were released in the inaugural session: Navigating Digital Futures, A Global Outlook, and The Digital Shift, Stories of Influence, Identity, and Innovation. Along with this, the latest issue of the Communication Today journal, that is 29th volume and 3rd issue, July-September 2023-25, was also released, further continuing the journal's nearly 3 decades of legacy of fostering critical discourse in media and communication. The session was anchored by Dr. Aastha Saxena, Associate Professor and Head Department of JMC Poornima University, with a welcome address delivered by Dr. Aditi Parikh, Senior Assistant Professor, Department of JMC, IS deemed to be University, and the vote of thanks proposed by Dr. Deepshikha Parashar, Assistant Professor Selection Grade, Department of Political Science, IS deemed to be University. Day 1, Understanding Research, Foundations and Framework. The session was conducted by Dr. Shweta Kaslia, Associate Professor and Head, Department of Management, IS deemed to be University. She elaborated on the characteristics of good research and explained the objectives and types of research, essential for research design, including ethics, sampling, hypothesis, formulation, validity, reliability, and peer review were highlighted. The session was moderated by Dr. Aastha Saxena. Day 2, Literature Review and Problem Identification. The second day featured Dr. Smita Sharma, Associate Professor, Tapni School of Business, Manipal University, Jaipur, with Dr. Babita Sharma as moderator. The session guided participants to the types and processes of literature review, strategies to identify research gaps, and problem formulation. Participants were trained on database such as Google Scholars and Scopus, along with AI tools like Research Rabbit and ScienceBase. Ethical consideration, academic writing, and critical thinking were emphasized. The day 3rd focused on research design and data collection techniques, led by Professor G. Sural Sir, former Dean, University College of Commerce and Management Studies, and affiliating Vice Chancellor of ML Sukhadia University, Udaipur. The session was moderated by Dr. Deepshikha Parashar. Professor Sural explained research design as a conceptual blueprint, crucial for minimizing bias and optimizing resources. He elaborated on the exploratory, descriptive, and experimental designs and provided detailed insight into data collection techniques from both primary and secondary sources. Discussions on sampling methods, focusing group, and managing variables further enhanced the session. The 4th day was dedicated to data analysis and interpretations, conducted by Umar Shankar Pandey Sir, Associate Professor and Head, Department of Journalism and Mass Communication, Surendranath College of Women, University of Calcutta, and Editor-in-Chief of Media Watch. Moderated by Dr. Aditi Parikh, the session familiarized participants with quantitative statistical techniques, hypothesis testing, t-test, ANOVA, correlation, and key concepts like confidence intervals, effect size, and statistical power. A hands-on demonstration with Jamovi software elaborated participants to practice descriptive statistics, data visualization, and APA formatting. Day 5, Writing, Presentations, and Ethics for Research. The final day was conducted by Dr. Anil Mehta Sir, Professor of Management, Department of Legal Studies, Banasthali University, Nivai. His session on writing, presentations, and ethics in research provided comprehensive guidance on report writing, structuring report papers, and presenting effectively. He emphasized the importance of academic integration, plagiarism prevention, and adherence to the ethical standards in scholarly communication. The session highlighted the responsibility of the researcher in maintaining credibility and contributing meaningfully to the academic community. The workshop received an overwhelming response with 89 registrations across India and beyond, reflecting its wide academic reach and relevance. Participants joined from diverse states and religions, including Orissa, Uttar Pradesh, Punjab, Haryana, Andhra Pradesh, Uttarakhand, Rajasthan, Arunachal Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, Delhi, West Bengal, Nagaland, Gujarat, Jharkhand, Tamil Nadu, Telangana, Assam, Madhya Pradesh, Karnataka, Maharashtra, Bihar, and also one from West Africa. All the sessions were highly interactive, with participants asking wide and insightful questions. The lively discussions created an engaging learning environment, making the workshop both enriching and participatory. This broad participation showcased an enthusiasm of scholars, researchers, and academicians eager to refine and research skills and engaging with experts. The one-week event not only enhanced methodological knowledge, but also fostered a collaborative and ethical research culture among participants. The overall feedback of the workshop was very positive. Participants expressed that the sessions were extremely helpful, engaging, and interactive. Many highlighted that the workshop met the expectations in terms of both content and delivery. A number of participants also suggested that such initiatives should be extended to 10-15 days workshop format, as they found the sessions highly beneficial for their academic and research pursuits. Several participants specifically appreciated the effective time management maintained throughout the program, ensuring each session was productive and insightful. The interactive approach encouraged active participation, and the question answer round were well received by all the attendees. Overall, the workshop created a vibrant learning environment where knowledge was not just shared but meaningfully exchanged. At the same time, few suggestions for future research workshops and future workshops were also received from participants, reflecting their enthusiasm for continued learning. Some of the suggested topics include data visualization tools, Microsoft BI, Power BI and similar tools, research methodology, various aspects, use of AI in research, digital research methodology, prompt engineering, statistical techniques including ANOVA, R and descriptive research, film studies, software-based tools for research, collecting and analyzing online data, AI tools for supporting research, and some of them also highlighted to repeat such sessions by expert speakers. It is good to see that participants are eager for more workshop of this kind, with many specifically requesting repeat sessions and advanced level modules. Such feedbacks not only reflects the success of the workshop, but also guides the planning for future academic endeavor to address the evolving needs of researchers and professionals. In the end, I would like to quote that everything ends that brings joy is not an end to all, but the start for something greater. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Aastha. With these words of wisdom and the report presentation, we now move towards the formal conclusion of the workshop. I welcome participants for their feedback about the 5 days workshop. I request participants to unmute themselves and can briefly present a feedback about the 5 days workshop.
Well, this has been completely, life-changing, I can say, because I had very little idea about, research methodology and all these aspects. So
can you open your mic, video?
Videos.
Yes, sir. I am actually traveling, so thoda dikkat hai yahan pe. Sorry, maaf kariyega. So, sir, actually, I am a freelance scientist. I am an entrepreneur and I am an author. So I did not have any formal, methodology, or I didn't know how to, organize all my research activities in a proper fashion. So after this workshop, I'm able to really see the total, scope and the method in which I need to adopt and everything. Now, this is actually the starting of the journey. I need to dig deep further. I want to specifically thank Deepshika Madam for making this this particular workshop known to everybody in her circle. So when I saw that, immediately I signed up. I would thank profusely every faculty member and all the elite academicians here who has enlightened us over the past 5 days to take our journey further, sir. Thank you and God bless. And happy Teachers' Day to everyone, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Sudhir ji.
Thank you,
सुरेंद्र कुमार मेरठ से हैं, वो रिसर्चर भी हैं और ऑल इंडिया रेडियो से जुड़े हुए हैं. आप कुछ कहना चाहेंगे?
सर नमस्कार.
हाँ जी, नमस्कार. कुछ आपके सजेशंस?
हाँ, सबसे पहले तो सर मैं कहना चाहूंगा कि सेशंस तो अपने आप में आउटस्टैंडिंग थे और ये बहुत अच्छा अवसर मिला कि वे रिकॉर्डेड हैं और आपने शेयर भी कर दी कि हम दोबारा इसको जब चाहेंगे हम इसको दोबारा से सुन सकते हैं. और टाइमिंग भी बहुत अच्छी रही कि शाम के समय जब सब लोग फ्री रहते हैं तो उसमें हम सब आराम से जुड़ पाते हैं. बीच में मेरी 2 ड्यूटीज थी तो 2 क्लासेस में मिस कर गया, लेकिन ज्वाइन किया था, लेकिन वो बाद में मैं इसको देख लूंगा, उसको जोड़ लूंगा. लेकिन बहुत अच्छा अनुभव रहा सर और सीखने के लिए. और जो सर ने आज बताया, क्योंकि मुझे अब रिपोर्ट ही तैयार कर रहा हूँ मैं फाइनली अपनी, तो सर का जो ये सेशन है मुझे दोबारा से देखना पड़ेगा थोड़ा सा, लेकिन ये बहुत अच्छा रहा, बहुत हेल्पफुल रहा सर. कुछ चीजें मुझे इसमें बहुत अच्छी लगी कि कुछ कीवर्ड्स जैसी चीजें हैं, कुछ एस्पेक्ट्स आपने छुए जो मैं अपनी रिपोर्ट में शामिल नहीं किया था, लेकिन अब मैं जब उसको दोबारा से देखूंगा तो बाकी जो आपने बताया उन सबको मैं इसमें शामिल जरूर करूंगा सर.
हमारे साथ एक बहुत सीनियर प्रोफेसर हैं हरियाणा सेंट्रल यूनिवर्सिटी से, प्रोफेसर विश्वा चौधरी. तो एक इतने सीनियर प्रोफेसर का हमारे साथ होना ये हमारे लिए बहुत अच्छी बात है। मैं चाहूंगा विश्वा जी भी यदि कुछ कमेंट करके आगे हमें मार्गदर्शन दे सकें। विश्वा जी। विश्वा जी आप सुन रही हैं? नहीं है। फिर डॉक्टर रश्मि कुमारी जमशेदपुर झारखंड से हमारे साथ जुड़ी हुई हैं। रश्मि कुछ कहोगे? मैं जिनको देख पा रहा हूँ नाम के। रश्मि नहीं है। एक आशा राजपुरोहित है, पॉलिटिकल साइंस की लेक्चरर हैं। उन्होंने मुझे आज मैसेज किया कि 11-12 साल बाद उनका मेरे से वापस ऑनलाइन मंच पे सामना हुआ। 11 साल पहले लाडनू में मुलाकात हुई थी। आशा जी अभी इस ग्रुप में है, तो मैं उनसे भी रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि वो कुछ अपना फीडबैक दें, कैसा उनको ये सेशन लगा।
गुड इवनिंग सर। आपकी आवाज सुन के पहले पहले तो बहुत अच्छा लग रहा है। 11 साल पहले आपसे मुलाकात हुई थी, जैसा मैंने आपको मैसेज में बताया।
जी।
मेरा एक सर्टिफिकेट कोर्स चल रहा था मास कम्युनिकेशन का, तब आप वहां पे आए थे हमको मार्गदर्शन देने के लिए।
जी।
तो ये माध्यम बनी ये वर्कशॉप वापस आपसे जुड़ने का। और इस वर्कशॉप के बारे में मैं कहना चाहूंगी कि बहुत सारे रिसर्च के वर्कशॉप होते हैं, पर इस वर्कशॉप को जब अटेंड किया और जो विषय विशेषज्ञों ने बिल्कुल बारीकी से जो चीजें समझाई है, वो शायद जब मैंने अभी 2 या 3 वर्कशॉप अटेंड करी है रिसर्च की, जो उनमें नहीं था वो इसमें हालांकि ये 5 डेज का था, थोड़ा समय अवधि कम है सर। नेक्स्ट टाइम ये सजेशन रहेगा कि थोड़ा 10 डेज का करें, ताकि जो भी विषय विशेषज्ञ हैं उनको भी और समय मिल पाए। और ये बहुत ही अच्छा रहा। जो थोड़े डाउट थे वो क्लियर हो गए, हमने बहुत सारे क्वेश्चन भी पूछे। और जो भी सबसे बड़ी बात ये कि जो भी विशेषज्ञ थे उन्होंने सेशंस को इंटरेक्टिव बना के रखा, मतलब हमको ऐसा लग रहा था कि हम सामने बैठ के ही कर रहे हैं। तो थैंक यू सो मच।
थैंक यू। रूपा कुमारी फ्रॉम मैसूर यूनिवर्सिटी, वो रिसर्चर भी हैं और एक कॉलेज में टीचिंग भी कर रही हैं। रूपा कुमारी।
Namaste, Vanadal.
हाँ, यस प्लीज।
Sir, thanks a lot. The whole workshop was very useful. The whole workshop very systematic. Before we asking, you submit all the PPTs and all YouTube, all recorded links. Such a wonderful session, sir. We are enlightened. Thank you very much, sir.
थैंक यू।
Thank you very much, sir.
प्रबल प्रताप सिंह, ये रिसर्चर भी हैं और अमर उजाला के साथ जुड़े हुए हैं कानपुर से। प्रबल सुन रहे हो? हालांकि उनका ऑफिस का टाइम होगा अभी, वो ऑफिस के काम के साथ साथ वर्कशॉप से जुड़े हुए हैं। यदि मेरी बात सुन रहे हैं तो वो भी अपना कोई फीडबैक दे सके। इसके अलावा जो भी बात कहना चाहे। हाँ जी, हाँ प्रबल
सर नमस्ते।
नमस्ते। नमस्ते
सर इस 5 दिन जो है बड़ी व्यस्तता भी रही, और इस वर्कशॉप को अटेंड करने का बस रीजन एक ही था कि जो है जो मैं रिसर्च कर रहा हूँ उसके बारे में और अधिक जानकारी हासिल कर सकूँ। और 5 दिन जो है मैं सुनता रहा काम के बीच में ही, और आपने जो है सारे लिंक भी भेज दिए, तो अब मैं उसको आराम से देखूंगा और जो नहीं समझ पाया उसको और समझूंगा।
जी।
बहुत बहुत अच्छा रहा सर। और मैंने सजेशंस भी दिया है कि ये वर्कशॉप फिर से होनी चाहिए ऐसे ही, और उसका टाइम ड्यूरेशन थोड़ा और ज्यादा होना चाहिए,
जी।
ताकि विषय विशेषज्ञों से और जो हम लोग इंटरेक्ट हो सके।
चलिए, थैंक यू। थैंक यू।
धन्यवाद सर, बहुत बहुत।
कोई और बोलना चाहें? बहुत सारे लोग क्विट हो गए हैं। कोई हमारे मित्र जो फीडबैक देना चाहें, अपनी बात कहना चाहें, आमंत्रित है? नहीं है। चलिए साहब, बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद हमारी ओर से भी। और ये जो एक समय की अवधि की बात है, मुझे लगता है ये हमारी चुनौती हर वर्कशॉप के साथ रहती है। जब मैं यूनिवर्सिटी में पढ़ाता था तो जो हमारी ज़्यादातर 5 डेज की करते थे हम वर्कशॉप्स, रूरल जर्नलिज्म पे किया, डेवलपमेंट जर्नलिज्म पे किया, इवन साइंस कम्युनिकेशन पे किया, बहुत सारे इश्यूज पे किए हमने। तो जब उसका वैलिडेटरी होता था तो हर पार्टिसिपेंट बड़ा इमोशनल हो जाता था और वो यही कहते थे कि साहब इसको 5 दिन और बढ़ा दिए जाएं। तो हम कोशिश करेंगे आगे कुछ समय को बढ़ाने का, और हमने कोशिश की है कि इन आभासी मंच के माध्यम से एक एकेडमिक एनवायरनमेंट को बनाने की कोशिश करें। कम्युनिकेशन टुडे ने अपनी सहयोगी संस्थाओं के साथ मिलकर के राइटर्स, जिसमें अभी कुछ यंग टीचर्स ने मिलकर के इसको व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप बनाया था, लेकिन उन्होंने अपनी एक क्रिएटिविटी से उसको एक अभियान के साथ जोड़ने की कोशिश की है और किस तरह से थिंक टैंक के रूप में उसे डेवलप किया। सबसे पहले एक सेमिनार की, उसकी 2 बुक्स हमने यहाँ रिलीज की थी उनके पेपर्स को। तो आगे भी हम सोच रहे हैं कि हम 2 तरह से इन गतिविधियों को चलाएंगे, सेमिनार्स भी चलाएं और वर्कशॉप्स भी करें। ये तीसरी वर्कशॉप थी, पहली हमने एआई इन रिसर्च पे किया था और जैसे सुझाव आया है कि एआई पे फिर काम करें, अपन बात करें, तो कुछ समय बाद फिर उसका जो एक सेकंड एडिशन है वो हम करेंगे। और एआई के जो और एस्पेक्ट्स हैं जो अभी जो आस्था ने सुझाव बताए थे, उनके आधार पर हम कोशिश करेंगे और इस तरह की प्लान करें। दूसरी वर्कशॉप हमने सोशल मीडिया को लेकर की थी कि किस तरह से हम इफेक्टिव यूज कर सकते हैं सोशल मीडिया का, रील्स के माध्यम से या जो भी इस तरह के प्लेटफॉर्म्स हैं, कैसे उसको हम यूजर फ्रेंडली बनाते हुए कैसे कंटेंट को तैयार करें और जो टूल्स हैं उनका उपयोग कर सकें। तीसरी वर्कशॉप ये थी जिसमें हमारा बहुत सारे मित्रों का सहयोग रहा, विशेषकर अनिल मेहता जी का, जिन्होंने कई एक्सपर्ट्स के नाम सुझाए। फिर उनकी अवेलेबिलिटी जो रही उसके अनुसार हमने उनको यहाँ पर इन्वाइट किया और उन्होंने कोशिश की कि अपना बेस्ट आपको लिमिटेड समय में दे सकें। और जैसा आप सभी का फीडबैक रहा कि आपके लिए आई ओपनिंग अनुभव रहा, हमारे लिए भी खुशी की बात है कि हमारा जो ये प्रयत्न है ये सफल रहा, सार्थक रहा। इन सब के पीछे हमारी पूरी टीम काम कर रही थी। कुछ जो हमारे शिक्षक हैं जिनको आपने एंकरिंग करते हुए सुना, डॉक्टर आस्था सक्सेना, जिन्होंने अपने नया डिपार्टमेंट इनका वहां पर रहते हुए काम करते हुए किस तरह से सारा संघर्ष किया पारिवारिक जिम्मेदारियों को निभाते हुए। ये तो चूंकि सारी की सारी फीमेल टीचर्स हैं तो हम सोच सकते हैं कि किस प्रकार घर परिवार को देखते हुए इन्होंने इस सारी एक्टिविटी को इतनी खूबसूरती के साथ और प्रभावशाली ढंग से अपनी अंतिम परिणति तक आज पहुंचाया। डॉक्टर आस्था हैं, डॉक्टर अदिति हैं, डॉक्टर दीप शिखा पाराशर हैं और प्रोफेसर रुचि गोस्वामी हैं, ऐश्वर्या माथुर हैं और बबीता शर्मा जो बड़ौदा से हमारे साथ जुड़ी थी, पहले जयपुर में ही थी। तो इस प्रकार से पूरी की पूरी टीम जो है वो इसमें काम कर रही है। और जो देवभूमि यूनिवर्सिटी है, विक्रम रुटेला शायद अभी नहीं है मेरे ख्याल, तो उनसे भी बात करता हूँ। वो खुद टाइम्स ऑफ इंडिया, टाइम्स नाउ जैसे अखबारों से और टीवी चैनल से जुड़े रहे और अब एकेडमिक्स में आए और किस तरह से उन्होंने अपने आप को एकेडमिक्स में मोड़ा और अभी एक तरह से सीखने का प्रयास कर रहे हैं। 4-5-6 वर्षों से वो टीचिंग के साथ जुड़े हुए हैं और उन्होंने ही प्रयास करके अपनी यूनिवर्सिटी को हमारे साथ जोड़ा। तो वहाँ के भी काफ़ी सारे शिक्षक हमारे साथ जुड़े थे। तो एक यूनिवर्सिटी के साथ जुड़ करके भी काम करने का एक अपना अलग संतोष है। चूँकि मैं अपने सेवा काल में मैंने कोशिश की कि बहुत सारे जो इस तरह के नेशनल इंटरनेशनल एजेंसीज हैं इनके साथ मिल करके काम किया जाए। तो जब 1, 2, 3 इस तरह के इंस्टीट्यूशंस जुड़ते हैं तो हमारा इसका एक फैलाव ज़्यादा होता है और ये विस्तार पाता है। तो आप में से जो भी मित्र इस तरह के हैं और भी मेरे पास सजेशंस आए हैं कि आप हमारे साथ मिलकर काम करें, तो आने वाले समय में हम जिस तरह की भी समय की सुविधा होगी इस तरह से सूचनाएं आपको भिजवाएंगे। आपके ईमेल्स हमारे पास हैं, तो आने वाली जो भी हमारी एक्टिविटीज़ होंगी हम ईमेल के माध्यम से आपको सूचना देंगे। और मैं आपको लिंक शेयर कर दूंगा, हमारा एक व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप भी है, उस व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप को हम आपको शेयर कर देंगे इसी ग्रुप में। तो जो भी इंटरेस्ट है कम्युनिकेशन टुडे की एक्टिविटीज़ के लिए, एक ग्रुप हमारा पूरा हो गया है, उसके 1025 मेंबर्स मैक्सिमम पूरे हो गए, तो उसमें हम ऐड नहीं कर सकते। और दूसरा ग्रुप हमने बनाया है, उसका लिंक मैं भेजूंगा आपको, तो आप जुड़ जाएंगे तो इमीडिएटली आपको ये सूचनाएं मिल जाएंगी कि हम कौन सी एक्टिविटी कर रहे हैं। दूसरा मैंने रिक्वेस्ट की थी कि हमारा यूट्यूब चैनल है, हमने सारे वीडियोज उसमें डाले हैं, तो आप जब भी चाहें उनको सुन सकते हैं। 177 वेबिनार्स हम अब तक कर चुके हैं, उनके सारे डेलिब्रेशंस। तो आप करीब 450 से लेके 500 जो एक्सपर्ट्स हैं अलग अलग फील्ड के, उनको सुन सकते हैं। आपकी जो रिसर्च है मुझे लगता है उसमें भी आप कहीं उनको कोट कर सकते हैं किस तरह से एक विषय के ऊपर अलग अलग ढंग से लोग बाग सोचते हैं। हमारी अगली वेबिनार 9 सितंबर को है और हिंदी साहित्य और हिंदी पत्रकारिता के जो पितामह हैं, जिनको हम आधुनिक हिंदी पत्रकारिता का जनक मानते हैं, भारतेंदु, उनकी जयंती है, उस पर हम केंद्रित करके कर रहे हैं। और मैं कोशिश कर रहा हूँ कि भारतेंदु के परिवार का कोई सदस्य, क्योंकि मुझे कुछ वर्षों पहले मौका मिला था बनारस जाने का, तब मैं भारतेंदु के घर भी गया था, और भारतेंदु के परिवार में जो ग्रेट ग्रैंड सन थे उनके, उनसे मेरी अच्छी दोस्ती थी। अनफॉर्चुनेटली उनका निधन हो गया है, लेकिन मुझे मेरे पास कॉन्टेक्ट नंबर उस परिवार में एक जने के हैं। मैं उनसे कोशिश करूंगा कि वो उसमें सम्मिलित हो करके जो उनकी एक पारिवारिक विरासत के बारे में जो कुछ वो सुनते हैं, जानते हैं, वो हमारे साथ साझा करें। तो इस तरह की कोशिश हमारी रही है, और हम 2 शिक्षकों को भी बुलाएंगे, एक साउथ के हैं और एक हमारे जयपुर से। मेरी बात चल रही है, जैसे ही फाइनल होगा तो जो भी हमारी सूचनाएं हैं सोशल मीडिया के विभिन्न जो प्लेटफॉर्म्स हैं उनके माध्यम से, आपकी ईमेल्स पे, और जो हमारा ग्रुप है उनके माध्यम से हम देते हैं। आप सभी से रिक्वेस्ट है कि यूट्यूब चैनल को ज्वाइन करें, हमारे व्हाट्सएप ग्रुप को ज्वाइन करें, ताकि ये जो हमारी विचार यज्ञ है, अभियान है, इसको हम और आगे बढ़ा सकें, और आप सबका हमको सहयोग मिले, आप सबका मार्गदर्शन मिले, और जो भी आपको सुझाव लगते हैं इसको बेहतर बनाने के, निसंकोच आप टेलीफोन पर, मैसेज के माध्यम से, ईमेल के माध्यम से हमको दे सकते हैं। मेरी ओर से बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद। आप सभी ने 5 दिन इतनी रुचि लेकर के, इतने मनोयोग के साथ इन सारी चर्चाओं को सुना, और हमारे उत्साहवर्धन को, हमारे मनोबल को बनाए रखा। ये हमारे लिए एक बहुत बड़ा सर्टिफिकेट है। सभी मित्रों के जो सर्टिफिकेट हैं वो जल्दी ही आपको उसका लिंक जो है ग्रुप में शेयर कर दिया जाएगा, और आपको सर्टिफिकेट्स भी जल्दी मिल जाएंगे। और आगे का जो भी अपना कार्यक्रम है वो मैं फिर अदिति जी से कहूँगा, डॉक्टर अदिति से, कि वो अपना अनाउंसमेंट करें। डॉक्टर अदिति पारिक।
Thank you, sir. On behalf of the organizing team, I extend heartfelt thanks to all those who made this academic initiative a success. I express our deep gratitude to the resource persons for their valuable insights and enlightening sessions. Our sincere appreciation goes to our patron, Professor Dr. Ritika Mehra, Pro Vice Chancellor, Devbhoomi Uttarakhand University, and Chairperson, Professor Dr. Bhavna Goyal, Dean, School of Journalism and Liberal Arts, Devbhoomi Uttarakhand University, Dehradun, for their support and encouragement. We are also grateful to our convener, Professor Dr. Ruchi Goswami, Professor and Head Department of JMC, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj University, Mumbai, and founder, Writers Reservoir, for her dynamic leadership. Special thanks to the organizing secretary, Dr. Aastha Saxena, for her tireless efforts in coordinating and managing this workshop. We also acknowledge the valuable contributions of our organizing committee members, Dr. Vikram Singh Rautela, Associate Professor, Department of JMC, Devbhoomi Uttarakhand University, Dehradun, Ms. Dr. Deepshikha Parashar, Assistant Professor, Selection Grade, Department of Political Science, as deemed to be University, Jaipur, Ms. Babita Sharma, Assistant Professor, TAP, Faculty of Journalism and Communication, the Maharaji Sayaji Rao University of Baroda, Ms. Aishwarya Mathur, freelancer, Ms. Rama Chaudhary, Assistant Professor, Department of JNC, Vivekanand Global University, Jaipur. We also extend our special thanks to the participants who have joined us from different parts of India and abroad. The active engagement, diverse perspectives, and enthusiasm have greatly enriched the deliberations of this workshop. With this, we bring our program to a close, carrying forward the insights, learnings, and inspiration shared over the past week. Thank you all.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, and happy Teachers' Day to all of you.
Thank you, and happy Teachers' Day.
Thank you, Anil. Happy Teachers' Day.